Hey everyone, so I've got another update on Space Arcade. So last time I added the collision boxes to the ships and the shapes and everything. I set up a time dilation system and made implemented timers in the engine. So this time I wanted to do some performance testing on each ship firing and seeing how that would affect frame rate. I was worried about the projectiles causing issues due to the fact that they query into the spatial hash very frequently. And so when you fire a projectile, right now it is doing the calculations to see which cells it would exist in, and then it asks the spatial hash if those cells currently exist, and if so, it does collision checks with the ship. I covered that in the last video, but from my profiling, it seems that doing a lot of queries into the spatial hash is not the most performant. It's actually the bottleneck of the application right now. So while it's amortized constant, and which is why we have good frame rate and everything, it's still the bottleneck of the application. And so I was worried about projectiles. If every ship is firing a projectile, what kind of impact that may have on the whole game as a whole. So what I have done is created this checkbox here in this side panel for debugging in the basic space test level. It is enable all ships continuous fire. So if I check that, all the ships begin shooting. And I notice a slight frame rate hitch when I enable this, but it's not that bad. I think it's like 2 frames, that makes me very happy, because I was expecting a lot worse, frankly. Right now, each ship is firing at one shot per second, and so the way that is working is that each ship enables a timer that loops, and after 1 second, it has a callback and tells, in that callback, the ship fires. So the timer system is working, which is great because I implemented it last time without really having a use case for it, just a unit test. However, that is not everything I did. So you can adjust the rate of fire here. So 0.5 means they're going to fire at 2 shots every second, basically. This is fire every half a second. So if I enable that, let's see what it does to frame rate. So this is the frame rate here. It's going up. So we're at 30. Enable it. So now we're down to like 20 frames per second. So that was a 10 frame rate drop just by making them fire twice as fast. And so that's not great, but there's more to it than, there's potentially a lot of factors going into it. Like how long is the projectile alive, etc. And so I created this thing. It's a widget. I called it the projectile tweaker. And it can modify the properties on the projectiles. Also, there are now projectile configs, which are JSON or serialized to JSON. So when you create a spawn configuration for a model, you can create a projectile configuration that it uses as its primary fire. And so now different ships can have different projectiles that they shoot. But this tweaker allows me to load up a projectile config, which happens to be what I've added to all these spawn configs for the ships. And I named it fighter laser. So I can modify this fighter laser in real time. So if I say I want them to actually go slower, now they're moving at 100 units per, per second. And I think that actually looks pretty cool. It reminds me of like snow falling, but in all different directions. And I can adjust how long they are alive. So if I say they currently are alive for half a second. Theoretically, if they're slowing, they need to be alive longer, but let's drop it down to 2.5. And let's see if that had any impact on the frame rate. And so we gained 5 frames, which is pretty awesome, actually. So by reducing their lifetime by half, we increased the frame rate by, or I don't know how to word this. Basically, we lost 10 frames per second at half a second lifetime. If we half that, we gain 5 frames back, which is half of the 10 we lost. So that makes sense. And so I don't expect every ship to be constantly shooting or anything like that. There will only be a certain subset of ships that are in the position to be firing. So if they have a person in their crosshairs. And so I guess I just need to start implementing the combat and seeing if how performance goes with that, and seeing if we need to drop the ship mounts or look at profiling and trying to optimize things. So that's about it. Thanks for watching.